we are live prior to the Snowmageddon on the East Coast. I guess we should call it. Welcome to the Random Party Generator. This is the random party we are presenting you with. Rob Conley, let me get to my directions right. Rob Conley, Mr. Bat in the Attic.
I am talking to you not from the Snowmageddon, but from the ice box north of the Snowmageddon.
Oh, okay. Uh, this down here is Greg Christopher, aka the Chubby Funster.
How's it
And
going?
below me, I hate when I say that. When I said it about Mike, below me, it just sounds wrong. But holding
All right, hold on, Eric. The lower left corner of your screen.
the lower left corner of the screen, holding my weight on his shoulders, supporting me as well he should, is Don Samora, Wizard Tower Games. This is your panel for tonight, unless Mike wakes up from his hibernation and says, "Pull me in, boys," which might happen. We never know. Mike is always an iffy. So, Fugly, you got no. We don't get snow until Sunday, but they're telling us 12 to 15. So
yeah, you're getting what we got.
Okay, and it's going to stay cold for a long time. It's not going to get above freezing for the next 10 days. So usually I don't mind a lot of snow because usually in New York you get a lot of snow and then you get the warming ocean and it I don't know, snow's gone after like 3 or 4 days. Not this time. This time is going to be a pain.
Yeah, we're getting forecast for 6 to 12. Pittsburgh is going to get slammed though.
It's not the snow that bugs me; it's the temps. We're like negative 28 right now
with the wind chill, right? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that will keep outdoor shenanigans down.
And getting ready because Atlanta and I'm in north of the city in the suburbs, but these people have no experience with snow at all. So they'll freak out even with a hard rain, and as soon as there's this tiniest smidgen of ice on the road, their brain turns off and it is chaos.
Greg, what was it, like 10 years ago when you had
yes, for
they had like 3 inches of snow and it took you like half a day to get home?
Well, the issue is that the people in charge of organizations were I almost said a word that I shouldn't say on YouTube, but they were very stupid. And
the restricted R word. Yes, I know what you're saying.
And they let everybody take their kids to school, and then at noon they were like, emergency release, come get your kids from school. So tons of cars go out onto the road right when this thing hits. So then these cars get stuck in traffic, and then ice forms underneath the cars because there's no movement, and then people got stuck everywhere. It was horrible. The Saturday Night Live skit about it was solid gold. He talks about how the Yankee dander fell down from the sky and attacked it. It's awesome.
I'm gonna have to look for that one. I mean,
yeah.
I remember you talking about it. I remember your frustration about how long it took you to get home.
Yeah, I had to walk home the last mile. And I didn't even get to my house. My dad's house was on the way home, and I was stuck. And I was like, I'm close enough to just walk to my dad's house. So I just got out of the car and walked to my dad's house. There's nothing I could do.
Well, I have a more recent story. I was coming home from Page. I had to leave Sunday morning because I didn't get Monday off of work. Page runs through Sunday, but I had to leave Sunday. And like the wrath of God, a snowstorm descended across eastern PA, and it wouldn't matter which direction I would have gone. If I would have gone north and tried to hook around 80, it was just as bad as going on the turnpike. Anyway, here I'm down turnpike, and it's just terrible, like worse than I ever seen. And the only thing I think it saved my bacon was I had all-weather. I just got brand new all-weather tires, and they were solid. But up ahead, I see a lot of stopped cars on the highway, and oh god, this is not good. And I pull up and it's like a massive crash. And I was the first, when I say regular traffic to come on there, there are already people dealing with the emergency, so they didn't have me get out. I didn't need to get out for help. So, but I was the first. They say, okay, put on your blinkers, do this, do that, and just wait. And so I'm on this massive crash, and I'm sitting there, and the heater's going. Wait a minute, my heater shut off in 5-degree weather here. Damn it! And I shut off my car, turned it back on. Oh my gosh, my heater is down, and I was panicking a little bit. And I let one of the emergency worker know, and he said, okay, if your car gets cold, let us know and we'll let you huddle in one of our vehicles. I said, thank you. But luckily they cleared out a lane within 20 minutes of that happening. So once I drew past, and the crash was indeed terrible. A couple cars went off a 4-foot embankment, one truck piled into another and their cab sheared off.
Ooh.
And one family was huddled in the snow. I guess their car wasn't moving anymore, but they looked all right, thank God. So anyway, I got past that, was able to get up to somewhat highway speed. It was still 40, maximum 40, but the heaters still work. It's just the blower died. By the time I cleared that whole storm belt, and I can resume regular 70-mile highway speed, there was enough air flowing to keep the cabin warm, even though I had no blower.
Rob, you need one of those astronaut blankets, those thin, whatever, fake aluminum blankets. They always advertise on TV. I
actually had 2 blankets in my car, so I had measures.
All right.
And I wanted to see you gloves from hell.
I wanted to see you wrapped up like a burrito.
Well, to bring this back to role-playing games, my party that's in my Saturday night game has gotten into the mid-fall now in Gods of the Forbidden North, and it's starting to get cold again.
Oh,
so
boy.
We can use those hypothermia rolls again.
Nice.
You got to find a way to gamify this, Rob. Turn it into, create it like a.
I have
the One Ring where you're following Rob's journey back from Page, and you can break it up into adventure segments and show the roles. This is, get Fugly to illustrate it, put it together as a supplement.
Yeah, go off the road for the travel stop, grab a 10-minute eat. Bite and rush out before my car cools down.
10 minutes, you mean one turn, right?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, see, Greg's been watching my videos about procedure. I understand.
I had to take a shit in one turn, so that was fun.
That's 10 minutes well spent. But if you did that during your trip, you might lose some body warmth.
Joe the lawyer was the GM with putting all those toilets in your game.
We need the porta potty. Where's the porta potty in the dungeon? Where's the privy? I need the privy.
The ironic thing is that in my How to Make a Fantasy Sandbox and now my Northern Marches, I have travel rules where those things can kind of happen. So I have games of.
I played the One Ring last night with Bacon in the chat, and he was our guide, and he rolled his guide roll so well that it said the first encounter would happen 2 hexes after we stopped moving. So we were good to go. We just went right to the target and no encounters.
Lucky you.
Beauteous thing. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, so now, Rob, you are the only one on this on the screen that actually went to Page.
Yes.
I did not get to Page this year for a number of reasons. Scheduling amongst other things, and our doggie was getting puppyfied, but or non. She's becoming a permanent puppy. She'll never reach adulthood. Okay, she's been spayed. So that was the events that were in motion here, and Don didn't get to go this year. So, Rob and Greg, you don't do Page.
No, it's pretty far for me. Even if I was, if I had a day to drive it or something.
Oh yeah, and honestly, and I'm going to throw this out there: Philadelphia in the middle of January is a crap shot. I know Ron says it isn't.
I used to work for a company where it was based in Philly, and they had Christmas parties. And it was one year it was perfectly fine, nothing, no problem. And the other year it was crazy snow. That was the time I went to Valley Forge, and I got the true Valley Forge experience, man.
Yeah, that's where
it was
Paige is
so
held.
cold.
Yeah.
Paige is held in the convention center in Valley Forge.
Woo, I know a little bit of what it must have been like for real. Oh man, that was brutal.
So, Rob, how was Paige this year?
Well, it was pretty good. There was a lot of people, as far as I can see. I can't really say about the role playing, the actual events themselves, because I had a vendor booth there, and my Kellyanne couldn't make it because our son got sick, so I had to pretty much stuck at the booth the whole con and had to cancel my events, which sucked. But it is what it is, and. But I got to meet people. Joseph Block of the Greyheart Grodnard was there. I got to meet the author of the Hexagrapher program.
Oh yes. Oh,
Yeah.
why can't I remember his name? I can picture it, but
I know. Maybe I can. But I bought.
Oh, I love his decks.
Yeah, I bought a couple of his decks off of Inkwell Ideas.
Designs, yes. Joe
Wetzel?
Wetzel, yes, thank you.
Yeah, Joe Wetzel. Great, thank God. I met Ignatius Umlaut of Fight On and got the 3 latest issues.
Oh, nice.
He's a cool guy.
Yes.
I actually met Kelsey Dion. I'll get to her in a second, but I went to her booth and her team and bought the first 3 issues of Cursed Scrolls, so that was nice. And I stopped by the WizKids booth, and they had 50th anniversary miniatures. So I bought 2 boxes. Should have gotten a brick. It was $140. It's a little pricey, but I thought I could get it comparable. Well, if they're selling it for $140 there, they should be selling it online for that. But no, they're selling it for $180 online. But I bought 2 of these, and you know what? They're well worth it. Half of it was 1E miniature. If you recognize this guy.
Oh, that is awesome.
And
you're the lawyer, right?
Yeah, it's Joe before his dieting and working out.
Yeah. So that is the Pit Fiend from the Monster Manual. Of course, the real.
Oh.
I guess we'll go with that.
That's
right?
a little better.
The real Bugbear from the Monster Manual, and of course they got a 5E miniature of a Bugbear. So this is new Bugbear, and this is classic Bugbear.
I like classic, damn it.
Classic, yeah.
And we have the Green Elf Knight. See if I can get it to focus on there. Of course not.
Focus.
But it's just like the illustration. And I believe this is either from the Fiend Folio or Monster Manual, but this is a 1E Skeleton Knight.
I wish they made minis with I forget his first name, but De Terlizzi, the guy who did all the 2nd edition Monster Man.
Oh, Drizzetti. Yeah.
His Hobgoblin is like my favorite Hobgoblin ever. I would love to have a mini with that Hobgoblin or something, but there's several monsters that I just feel like he really nailed. I mean, that 2nd edition was my first edition, so I'm biased in that respect, I'm sure. But I just love the idea of the Hobgoblin that's in like basically Mongol equipment, and he just looks like a brutal raider, just going to come in. He doesn't have that kind of comical, cartoony element to him at all. He's just very, very aggressive look.
Yeah, I really want to get the Blue Wizard and the Green Fighter, so I accompany this bad boys that I bought.
Oh,
This is sold separately. You don't have to collect for this, but
All right.
I don't know if you can buy this anymore. But I might buy a brick yet.
All right. So it's Tony DiTerlizzi.
yeah.
And did a lot of work on Planescape, which is what I remember, like Sigil and all that stuff. Very iconic for the time.
Yeah.
So however, I did get to do one thing that was very nice. I got to sit on a panel called the State of the OSR. It was hosted by Luke Stratton, the creator of Pirate Borg. Kelsey Dion was on it, and I was on it. Levi Combs, he's the founder of Planet X Games, and Tiger Wizards, and he's part of the Exalted Funeral. They're this distributor and storefront. He also runs the Mad Dungeon podcast. But it was a really good panel. And when I met Kelsey, she knew who she was from, I guess, James Mishler. So James, if you ever listen to this, thank you for talking me up. It was really nice to hear her compliments. But then she signed my book.
That's really, really cool, Rob.
That's very nice.
And then I got to sign a copy of Black Marsh and said she and her team did a wonderful job with Shadow Dark. Keep up the good work and fight on.
So Rob, you know what you have to do now, right? You gotta write a copy of Black Marsh. You gotta translate that to Shadow Dark.
What
Yes.
the hell do I translate, Eric? You know Black Marsh. There's nothing to translate. Just insert stat block here.
Well, but yeah, come on. You just, you're printing money. You're minting gold pieces.
Well,
Yeah.
I do have a Shadow Dark plan in mind. In fact, it doesn't involve Black Marsh. It involves one of my other points of light setting, Wildlands, which is, for those of you with my points of light, there are 3 settings and one describing another planar setting of Sarath, the dragon god of order and war. So the 3 settings are set in they're part of the same continent, but in different time periods. One is set in the present day of 1000. The other one is set in the past, at the height of the Bright Empire, when it's just about in the middle of its civil war in the year 250. And then Wildland is set in the year 500, 50 years after the fall of the Bright Empire, which is this continent equivalent of the Roman Empire. And I figured that would make a good Shadow Dark setting. So I would, tweak Wildlands to include, look at the tables, kind of like the tables you have in your books, Greg, and how the Shadow Dark has their table. Make sure those are included, and make it an explicit Shadow Dark setting. Figure that's the Dark Age after the fall of Rome is an ideal time period for a Shadow Dark campaign.
For like roughly the past year, I've been running Shadow Dark and OSE alternating. I run OSE every my Saturday night game, and then I'd run a whole bunch of Shadow Dark as one-offs and live streams and stuff like that. And there is a significant difference between the way things work out in each system, even though they appear very, very close. And one of the things that I've been looking at as I revise Shadow Sun this year is making a whole bunch of adjustments that I didn't realize I needed to make back when I originally wrote it, because I just didn't have enough experience with Shadow Dark. So,
well, what do you mean there are differences? I mean, difference in how you referee it, or it's something that the rules make you do?
Yeah, in the way that the way that you use monster abilities, the dynamic, because of the way that players are going to be using their abilities, the way that it interacts with, there's a whole bunch of just all these little changes that I've noticed. So I'm not calling you out in particular. There's tons of people that are converting stuff to Shadow Dark. I'm just saying, like, make sure you play it a lot in Shadow Dark first, because I've had a lot of stuff that I've wanted to tweak, had to tweak after the fact because of interaction with the reality of running the system.
Yeah, if I can find anybody to play with, because all my friends want to play 5e because they like their fiddly bits for their character, which I have no problem with. It's just it's just where I get the bulk of my playtesting done.
Well, you have my condolences, sir, but I wish you improvement in conditions. I just recruit some new guys, take it out for a different drive.
So there's a couple questions related to panel. Yes, the planner was recorded, and apparently it's going to be out in a few weeks.
Their page had its own YouTube channel, so I'm guessing that's where it will be.
Yes, it's called. I can't pronounce the name of it. Called Limisto. Oh yeah, I can find it. I can find.
By the way,
last.
Greg, my ear trumpet.
Yeah, I just thanked him in the chat. Thank you, buddy. Much appreciated.
I got the link, Eric, now, so you can.
All right, drop it in the private chat, Rob.
All right, so keep an eye there. So, so when I saw the panel, I go, okay, state of the art. So, as a blogger, I like to write up my thoughts. So I wrote up my thoughts. I didn't get to deliver my thoughts because that was not the first question we were asked. We were asked, what is the OSR? And after we all got done.
State of the OSR panel. What is the OSR?
Okay. Yeah.
Crazy
so
to me.
After we all got done laughing, they because if those of you don't know, if you ask that question on any forum, that thread will that forum thread will become a shit show by the fifth post, because everybody has their view of the OSR, and however, it did not turn out that way for us. Kelsey, my memory's a little fuzzy, but Kelsey, I actually had a pretty traditional view centered around the classic edition. The other, Tiger and Levi, were adamant that it was a play style, exploring dungeons, danger, consequences, if you make mistakes and stuff like that. But it was a play style. And that's not, those of you who follow my blog, no, that's not the angle I take with the OSR, because, in 2009, I said that the OSR wasn't about a specific rule book or running dungeon crawl. It was about going back to the roots of our hobby to see what avenues were left unexplored because of the personal or commercial interest of the time. And because the question was the panel question, I kind of had to ad-lib my answer, and now, plus I wrote that in 2009, and now we're in 2025, and I basically went with the OSR is an alternate history of game design, because think about the trend with D&D 3.0 at the time when the OSR was founded. Then we went to 4.5, 4E, and we went to D&D 5E, which did pay respect to old school gaming, but definitely had a lot of it was all doses of 3E and 4E in it as well. And then we had all the NEs were being won by games like Blades in the Dark, Apocalypse World, real narrative heavy games. And so really until recently, OSR was the alternate in this history of the industry. But I explain why that is, because unlike other niches of the hobby, the OSR started out as a hack of open content. And once Matt Finch, Stuart Marshall, and Chris Goneman pioneered that hack that resulted in Ostrich and Basic Fantasy, people started thinking, like with Dan Proctor, that hey, I can do that for BX D&D and come out with Labyrinth Lord. Matt Finch, when because he had to drop out of Ostrich at the beginning, said, I can do this again for OD&D and come out with Swords and Wizardry. And then James, Raggy came along. I was doing my Majestic Waterland and Carcosa, and just the beat, it started getting faster and faster and faster. Going now. And this resulted in a situation where, because of what the internet, because of you can pay, you can now it's people don't like paying a monthly fee to Adobe for the software, but it's not out of reach because before in 2005 to buy an Adobe package, you had to pay $1,000, and who the hell is going to do that? Half the people I knew pirated their copy of Adobe.
I feel a lot of people are using Affinity and other stuff now.
Yeah, true, and the competitors, Adobe, Affinity, the open source alternative like Inkscape, they've gotten better. So the technical barrier to do professional level work, if that's the route you want to go, has gotten better. And even if you don't do professional work and just want to share, your reach is you just post it on a popular forum, or in you just have a blog that you do in your spare time. Somebody in Asia can download it. Somebody in Europe. Somebody on the opposite coast of the United States can download it. So all this meant that we had a niche of our hobby that, unlike most other niche, we don't have a dominant publisher. So the field is wide open for people to take creative risk. And that's what, and I basically turned to the panel and looked at them. Everything you guys said about what you think the OSR, it's all of the above. And it's all because of the above. It can be all of the above because of the logistics I described. And then I got a little red face at this, but then the whole room gave me an applaud. So I guess they really liked it.
Well, I think we can use like certain key elements as a defining point that gets a long way as well. So if you have a game that has no authorial mechanics for the players, that takes out story games, right? So it's not story game design is not an old school design. And then you say that the resolution mechanic.
Can I interrupt you 1 second?
Yeah.
I found a nice way. I don't know if you'll like this phrasing, but I found it really easy to communicate the difference between story games and what we do. We in the OSR primarily focus on acting. When we play a game in the OSR, we primarily focus acting as the character, not as theatrical acting, but we're always doing it from the point of view, pretending that we're at the character, looking out at the character's eye. While in the story game, they give you rules and subsystem to act for the character.
That's what I'm saying with authorial control, Rob.
Yes.
So they don't have any mechanics for that, right? So you don't have that, and your primary mechanics are about resolving a specific action, not a cluster of actions. So like a lot of the Free League games, they will abstract out a cluster of actions into one role, for instance. Mm-hmm. And that's why I don't think that even though I like Alien and I like I like the idea of Walking Dead in practice, I don't like how it plays out because of some mechanics, but different things like that they're resolving a cluster of actions all at once with a response. Whereas in a traditional OSR game, you're saying, I'm going to do this specific thing. We're going to roll the dice and see if that specific thing happens, right? And it's not abstracted out to a scene or a whole big dialogue gets resolved into one thing. It's I'm trying to do one specific thing. There's a role. It gets resolved.
We might abstract things like if we have merchant rules like AKS has, because we don't actually role play out every.
Well, yeah. Those are time-saving rules. So Axe has rules to like do an abstract dungeon delve, but that's only if you don't want to actually do the dungeon delve. That's not like if you made a game where it was we're going to go in the dungeon, we roll a couple of dice, and that tells us what's happened when we went in the dungeon. Yeah, that would not be old school at all. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and then the other thing about that people I think earn my applause, so to speak, because I did address it directly. What is the OSR? I said, think of the classic editions of D&D, AD&D 2E down to the original 74 release, as a gravitational point source, a star. And then when Osric, Swords and Wizardry, Labyrinth Lord, OSE, they're all in close orbit to that star. And then you get, at things like like Blood and Treasure, which is kind of like an OSR RPG with some 3E elements in it. Really well done, but it had some 3D elements, like the 3 saves and some feats with a light touch.
John Slater, yeah.
And John Slater, yep. And then there was my Majestic Wonderland, even though I called it abilities, they were really skills. And then, so they orbit further out. And then you have people, then you start getting further and further out. And then as you get to the Orc Cloud, and that's where you find your, then you get further out, you have Shadow Dark, which is OSR and Spirit, supports you can run that Shadow Dark the way you do any other OSR game with no problem. Although it's clearly mechanically a lot more closer to 5e with a light touch than a classic D&D.
DCC, which is really 3E with
OSR. Yeah, DCC is in the same, I would say, in the same orbit as Shadow Dark. But then you get Mork Board, which is like in the Orc Cloud, still orbiting those classic editions, because they fed off of the Gonzo side, which led to the weird Horde side, which has always been a thread from day one of the OSR. Jeff Rintz, the king of Gonzo, he was his blog was an early scene for a lot of that, and James Raggy certainly still working in that arena, and and then occasionally you'll see these projects come up, say like Dungeon World, that try to orbit the OSR, but they quickly go.
That's what I'm saying. Because they have those authorial mechanics, it changes things.
Yeah, and they go off an escape trajectory, and they become their own thing. They're still successful. They're just their own thing. They're not in orbit around the classic edition. Torchbearer, I would say, is another one of those, and which is fine. And there's GURPS Dungeon Fantasy, which never really tried to orbit the OSR, but it definitely builds up, tries to do it in a GURPS fashion, but it's definitely not in orbit around that sun.
Well, I would include GURPS because it does, like I said, it resolves specific actions with a die roll, and there's no authorial elements that get added on.
Yes, that's true. That's why I used it for 20 years, but I don't see a lot of people. I'm not seeing between the humorous side of it. I don't see many people in OSR using the GURPS Dungeon Fantasy for inspiration.
Well, I don't know how many people are playing GURPS anymore. Just period. I'd love to if we had data on what people are playing.
Well, we used to
for Eric Tinkar to do,
Well, listen, we used to, but after COVID spiked the numbers up for Fantasy Grounds and Roll20, they were very happy with their steroid enhanced numbers of users to show what people were playing. But then when those numbers started shrinking, Roll20 hasn't given an OR report in like 4 years. Fantasy Grounds stopped giving it. But that was a great insight because honestly, what people are playing online is going to reflect to some extent. You can get an idea what people are actually playing, especially if the two reports were lining up a bit. But now we don't have those numbers because
all we have is the medal levels. We can see whether they hit platinum or gold
which is just showing you what's selling, but not what's being.
That's right.
played.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. But again, they don't want to show because then they'll have to show that, hey, we lost half of our players over the last 5 years. when everybody had to play online. Now, people who prefer playing in person are back to playing person. Those Roll20 numbers always show Call of Cthulhu variants, and the clear number 2 game being played was usually Call of Cthulhu, which I can see that to a large extent, because that is certainly the system that drives Chaosium's business far more than anything else does. But those numbers were, and actually I don't know if they were number 2. I think Pathfinder was still number 2, unless you're counting Pathfinder as D&D. God knows. I mean, OSR was a small bit, but yeah. But all right. So here,
I want to finish up. So the rest of the panel, we had some interesting questions, but I noticed some questions. So it will be posted on that channel in a couple of weeks as episode 3 of their second season of their podcast, and I got to review that to remember it, because for one thing, we were asked what we think is coming next for the OSR, and Kelsey gave a really interesting answer. She thought that systems
6E was going to go back towards old school, if I remember that. That was the answer she gave a couple months ago.
Yeah, she said it's simulationist, more, not GURPS, but it was more AKS style side of the road. She seems like to say, but I really don't want to put that, put words in her mouth until I actually can hear it, on the transcript. So, and Luke and Levi and Tiger all said interesting things that I want to re-listen to. So when that comes out, look for my blog post and report on that.
Now, Eric, I do want to say, one of the problems that we have is that we're obsessed with looking for big numbers that tend to spike, like you were saying.
Right.
A game will come out and there'll be a huge spike of sales and users, and then that will fade off over time. So like in a apps on a phone type perspective, they look at active daily users of this app versus that app or whatever. We don't have that kind of data.
We don't.
But I think one of the great things about the way that production has shifted to small people, or small publishers, who may be small people, I don't know. But that by having those tools, it allows you don't need to sell 400,000 copies in order to be able to get by in this business now. You can, if you can really get a consistent number of maybe 5,000 regular customers, you can full-time this industry if you can do that. So there's really a totally different landscape than has ever existed in the past, in the way that the options that are open to us now. And I feel like a lot of times people are looking for that Kickstarter that does X million or X $100,000 in revenue, rather than looking at what is the kind of consistent number of people. If this many people are playing Shadowdark year after year after year for multiple years, that's better than way more people playing for 2 months and then that
right and walking away from the game.
We do have one source of public data. We can go for the Kickstarter RPGs and compile a list and keep track of that over the time.
That doesn't tell you what's being played. Because all right, so if you're going to do that, I don't have to look at the list. I can tell you there are 2 rule systems, 3, that are going to come up repeatedly: Shadowdark, OSE, and DCC. And I'm not counting 5e. All right, these are the ones that are going to come up repeatedly. But DCC is coming up not much because of the third party. It's all Goodman. Okay, Shadowdark is coming up repeatedly because of third party, and OSE a little bit of both. And I think that is interesting to see. But again, it doesn't give us those firm numbers that we were able to look at before and say, oh, all right, so 42% of the games being created on Roll20 are for 5e. Well, then you had a very good ballpark of what percentage of the community was playing 5e. At least How many people have unopened Kickstarter stuff? We're not doing that survey, Fugly. I'm sorry, not doing that survey. Even with Rach on the other side of the house right now, not doing that survey because
What
within
survey
that
are you talking about?
I'll get in trouble. I want to do just a quick show. On Sunday, one of the members of my old gaming group came over to bring me a late Christmas present, and it was the limited edition 2025 Dungeons and Dragons bourbon whiskey, aged for 2 years in a mead cask. You can see the dragon scale on this, the nice wax sail. It comes with a dragon head pour spout, which I don't have by my desk, but that was my friend Brian. God bless him. This, by the way, not the bottle, not the liquor, but the thought behind this. It was Brian saying, "Dude, we've been, I've known you for I think I've known Brian for 40 years, probably 40 years," and he's like, I gave him some of the most entertaining days of his life when we had our regular gaming group up through 97, and we still get together on a yearly basis because those are the bonds that you make when you're in a community like this. And, thank you, Brian. It'll be put to good use. Maybe I'll take this to, well, I'll get in trouble for serving liquor at TotalCon that wasn't sold by the bar, but, I'm just saying it may have to go with me. May. So.
That's just a smuggler class ability.
I'm not a
smuggler.
I'm not a smuggler. Please. But yeah, I actually got teary-eyed when he gave me that. I was like, he's like, well, he goes, I saw it and I was like, I gotta get this for Eric. I was like, so thank you, Brian. But hey, did we all see that Satine is still talking about her Siren of the Bards Kickstarter? I think she just completed part 2 of the 10 parts that are now 4 years late.
I don't pay attention to that at all.
Well, yeah. I don't pay attention to it, but then members of the Taverns community go to me, have you seen this shit? And it's like,
Well, I don't know if this is because of AI or I was on this path anyway, but the amount of AI slop that's in my recommended stuff on X or Facebook or whatever,
right,
is reaching a level of auto close on me so fast that there's like a whole category of information now that I don't even waste time reading it. If it's not somebody I'm already following, I just get rid of it and delete it. Move it off my feed. There's a lot of stuff you're forcing yourself to slug through, like Ken Whitman stuff. I admire your endurance, buddy. But
oh, dude, I've already got one request. Sorry, Eric with the C 10 card. Not somebody that isn't even me got a takedown by X date. By the way, the date was in parentheses and not included. I got this form letter, which, by the way, I ran it through AI, and AI says it's likely created by AI. But yeah, listen, the Ken Whitman stuff, I take one for the team. And by the way, Ken became a member of this channel.
I saw that.
And I had a comment on my post where I mentioned it because somebody was like, I missed something. Why are we praising him? And if you didn't catch the snark in my praise, I am so sorry. But he is esteemed in his own mind.
He wanted access to your exclusives,
I know, because I know. Because I'm going to have exclusives on Ken. But
To answer Fugly right there, I don't know. That's why I said I don't know if it's just the impact of AI or it's just things are getting so bad.
Some of the videos are AI. It's like,
That's right.
oh, look, that sweet little kitty cat just chased off a werebear.
Yeah.
No. And by the way, and that shit annoys me. Okay, that because it's like, whoa. I want to be like, oh, I'm happy for the animal. Oh, that's just so fucking bullshit.
Yeah. Because I used to like it would come up and it would have some kind of thing about World War II, or it would have some thing about.
If they're narrated, it's likely that's a warning sign that the smell for AI. If you don't see the person on screen.
Oh yeah, that to me, if I even see that it says the little button to follow them on Facebook, right? Like I'm checking Facebook, I just delete that. It's gone. If I wasn't following them before, I don't need to follow it now.
All right. So now, by the way, on Facebook, there's one feature that I hate, and if you do this, I will unfriend you, and that is.
Can I guess?
Yes.
Highlight.
Yes. You highlight because you're gonna win a blankety blank RV van. You're gonna win a 2025 Honda, whatever. No, you're not. Okay.
Right.
You highlight. I go, who highlighted me? Unfriend.
Yes.
Now, if you like posting a lot of politics, I'll usually just unfollow you. But if you are doing the highlight, you know what? Bye. Because you don't value your friends when you're doing that. You're just spamming us with bullshit. So, now as for there's a conversation going on about solo play.
Oh yeah, I did want to answer Death Angel, but
yeah, go ahead.
Say what you were going to say. Okay, I've seen, I've said this on this channel. We're talking with you. I think I did not have any like push to get into solo play. I had just been talking to Matt Jackson about it and converting over Terra Invictus from my Ambition and Avarice version into Shadowdark. I realized I could design it in the way that I did. But since I did that, I've had so many solo play people talk to me about using it. And like Brad was right there in the chat also. A lot of people have said to me that they do it. It helps them feel so much better about building their own skills as a GM without practicing on innocent victims, right? So they can try to basically GM nobody and see how it goes, and then realize all the things that they're going to need to know how to do for a real party, because they're going to go, well, how would I know? Okay, I need to have written down in advance, like this is what this guy is going to do under these conditions or whatever. All kinds of things that it's really good for people that are novices trying to build that up. It's also, as Jeff mentioned, it's very, very good for playtesting your own content, because you can run the combat. You can make a party. You can run the party with that thing. You can say, well, what if I make a party of all dwarfs? What's going to happen then? And you could run that. You can experiment and do different things. And it also allows, this is, I think, a benefit that YouTube has brought, is that you can look at how other people are doing very similar tasks to what you're doing, even with real people, not solo play. So you can see how somebody, oh, this guy, he's running the same module as me. He's running the same dungeon, or he's doing a very similar thing. But look how he did this thing. So one of the things I commented on Bradu's series, he did a whole series on his YouTube channel about Terra Invictus, is his guys were almost the opposite level of murderous of my parties that I've had in real life, right? So they had like somebody that was unconscious. They didn't just murder that person and move on. They had all these different things, and I could see a different way of approaching the exact same situation. Well, so that's my position on it.
I've had a number of requests on my channel. I mean, for me, surprisingly number, because I'm doing my BX procedures series of videos and trying to get into the classes, and I've been asked to do videos from the solo perspective. And what I'm going to try to do, I don't know how well this is going to work out, is I'm going to try to add going forward at some point a solo perspective to the procedures. But I don't know if there's an interest for me to just do a video on here's how to do BX solo. I know there is an audience for it. I just don't know how much of my audience is going to convert to that. But if I can add some solo hints and tricks, I'll try to like pepper them in going forward.
Yeah.
But
Well, I have on the side burner a dungeon that I've been working on that uses the same icon system from Terra Invictus adapted into a dungeon environment. And it's a big dungeon. So you could go in and have totally different experiences between multiple group. You could, even for to me, when I first started, my first thought about it was you can get value out of a book that you otherwise wouldn't, right? So you bought a book, you can't run it with a group. You don't have a group, like Rob was just saying a few minutes ago, right? Like all of his guys want to play 5e, but let's say Rob really wants to play Shadow Dark and get into that. Like he could run Terra Invictus by himself,
right,
and then go and play with his 5e group on another time. That you can at least get value, because I like, how many books have we bought that we wish we could play, but we just don't. We can't for some reason. Usually because like composition of our friend group.
right.
Yeah, and I think that's a real opportunity.
I do see again. And For Against Darkness, I own the rules. They look damn good, but I'd almost want to play it as a regular RPG with players, But I'm going to see what I can pepper amongst my general procedure stuff. But and I'm going to guess as winter hits spring, my videos are gonna have to slow down because I'll probably have covered all the procedures I can think of, and that's just the nature of the beast. But we'll see when we get there. I'm not like Greg. I can't do these in-depth videos, man. Greg, your stuff is like second to none.
Thank you, but I've slowed down a lot. I've had a really rough month or so at work, so I just can't get around. Like I'm exhausted, but I think I'm dropping a video tomorrow at noon.
Oh, all right, cool. Eric. I'm gonna have to watch.
And I'm laying out a explanation. I think that it would have been what I would say if I was on Rob's panel, about that. Basically, there's game rules are like little dots, and the GM creates a framework between all those dots to run the game. And then once they've done that a few times, they then basically have their own framework that then when they pick up a new game, they just integrate that new game into their frame. So it's almost like a Borg that just keeps absorbing things that they've learned. And it's unique for each GM. And the hard thing is like trying to call something an OSR game or whatever, you're trying to classify the GM styles of thousands of players into categories. These people run games like this. These people run games like that.
Right?
And, we talked about when we met at North Texas, like I was there to play in a Greg Gillespie game, see how that is. Play in a Glenn Hallstrom game, see how that goes. Play in a Bill Barsh game, see how that goes. Get that experience of those things, because that's where the real meat is. We all have the rule books. We can all see the rule books. the elite kind of hidden information is, what are these people who have really excelled at doing this? What is their praxis is the word that I use in the video tomorrow.
Well,
what is that? And because if we can kind of come up with a way of talking about this, then we can look at, just as an example, I get to, sorry, I'll yield in a second, Rob. If we can pick one thing like running a trap, right? And I can say, how would Eric run this trap? How would Joe the lawyer run this trap? Even with the same rule system, it would be different, right? How would Rob run this trap? And then once we can have like multiple data points, we can say, what is the outcome of running it like Rob, running it like Eric? What if you run it like Joe's, this is what happens. If you run it like Eric's, this is what happens. That's the kind of information I think would be really useful to people.
So, okay, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I got to say, what I'm about to say, I've talked a little bit on the forum, has not been received well.
What a pretense!
And I get, excuse my language, shit on from both sides of the aisle on this. What I'm about to say. So this whole thing is born of the fact that after I get done with my Northern Marches, my next major project is going to be my Majestic Fantasy RPG, and I feel I do some distinct things with it, and I've been trying to figure out how to explain it, because it's not just solely about the rules. It's about how I use the rules. And I have a lot more experience with story games now. And it occurred to me, I got in this debate a few years ago on this forum, and just something crystallized. What the question I feel I have an answer to is, what is a role-playing game, period? Okay, what's it make it different from other forms of gaming? All right, role-playing games involved, well, the focus of role-playing game is we're pretending to be characters. It's the point of role-playing games to pretend to be characters having adventures, okay, in a way that's better than let's pretend, because we know how unsatisfying let's pretend can be. Bang, you're dead. No, I'm not.
I was about to say the exact same thing. That's what happens. Yes.
Okay. And starting with the early wargaming community like David Wesley, I feel in Dave Aronson's Blackmoor campaign, he is the one who put all together the element that created the first tabletop role-playing campaign. Didn't necessarily create the first game. That honor goes to Gygax working with Dave to make D&D, because Dave notoriously never wrote down what was in his notebook. And what makes a role-playing game? You describe a situation. It's a play loop, a process where you describe, you, the referee, or the group. There's any ways you can do it. But a situation is described. That includes the characters that the players are playing and the setting. But something is described, a situation. Then the players say what they do as their character. Then that is adjudicated, typically by a single referee. But there are ways to do it, other ways to do it. And then once that's adjudicated, then the new situation, then the situation of the campaign is changed, and a new set of circumstances described. The loop is repeated over and over and over again. And I believe, and I haven't done the work, so I can't prove this to anybody's satisfaction. So this is where I get my first wave of disbelief, because I realize it's a pretty big claim here. But I believe any role-playing campaign or a game out there or campaign could be described in terms of this loop. Doesn't mean they're all the same. It's just They all describe, at some point, they describe the circumstances. At some point, the players describe what they do. At some point, it's adjudicated. Things are changed, and you repeat this again and again for the session, then over the session, over the campaign. So, how do we figure out all these different ways of making what you just said, Greg, on how I DM, how Eric DMs, how this? Well, you folks, rather than saying, right now, theory is classification. It's after the fact. It's backwards looking. It's saying, okay, these guys are gamers. They're like war gamers. They just focus on the rules, 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 rules. D&D 4E is a classic example of what people say by gamers. Then you got narrative. People are focused on the narrative, story gaming.
You're back to the Forge theory.
Right, and that's bullshit. Okay, that's backwards looking. And you have simulation, and nobody can really explain what simulation is. I think
Alexander
Macris is trying to reclaim the term, but to be fair to him, his is kind of a narrow view. It works for a classic game, but it's not an omnibus, I think. No, what you have to do is do what I think is take an operational view. You're going to look at the creative goals. What is my goal here? When Kelsey wrote Shadowdark, she had some goals in mind, okay? She implemented those goals with Shadowdark, and the campaign she ran with Shadowdark. And then you could look at the result of that campaign, the actual play, and see, did that result match what she said was her goal? And the answer, yes, it did. Okay, now why? And that's where you can see. Is there DM style? Where's it go? And I think if we approach things operationally, it's called operational analysis, and it doesn't have to be that particularly elaborate. It's just a thing. You start with, what are the goals? What happened? How is it accomplished? And the rules in this whole thing, this or this, or the whole shelf full of stuff I got up there. Those are all implementations of various creative goals. But then you can't just focus on this, because like you said, Greg, you got to factor in how the DM operates, how things are adjudicated, because some groups distributed the refereeing authority. Not common, I think. It's not common as a single referee, but it's definitely prone to the styles of those involved, particularly if it's a single referee.
Well, let me use an example, Rob. So I actually made a video where I talked about a player character that was killed in my campaign. I killed him, but really the dice killed him. He rolled a random encounter. It was a D6. They got a 1. That's not my decision. I checked the random encounter table. It's a terrain encounter. They're out on a hex. He rolled it. He got a rock slide avalanche. Okay. And the rocks fell down and killed him. Right.
Right.
Everybody got a save. He was the only person who failed his save and took enough damage to kill him. He was a level 1 guy in a group of 3 to 4 level characters. Yeah. So he was a low man on the totem pole, and he got squished. I've had tons of people in the comments offer all sorts of different ways that they would have adjudicated it, even within the same rule framework.
Right.
So, but why? But here's the interesting question: why would they adjudicate? That's what I'm curious about. And from that, we can learn, if we know why they want to adjudicate that way. If somebody has that same goal, they can look at that person and say, yeah, your method is useful to me.
That's right. So there were people who said, I should have given the guys plenty of warning and rumbling and the sounds of rocks and stuff.
Telegraphing the danger. Okay.
So that they could have taken precautions. And my response was, well, then the result on the encounter table is not rocks fall, but you get a warning about rocks falling, right? Then you could dodge that. But that's not what if you roll a bear, it doesn't say give them a warning that there's a bear. And if they say, hey, let's turn around, then that's it. No, they run into a bear, right?
Okay,
So,
well, here's the thing.
so
This is my
hold
counterpoint.
on. So
Okay,
having the
sorry.
mechanical thing being identical, same chance of getting a random encounter, same random encounter table. I could have 5 different people run it, and it would have not every single one being perfectly unique. I mean, some people might do it the same way, but there would be differences in how they adjudicated it. And there's things that we don't even operationalize in the rules about how people describe things, how they present stuff, how, the warnings, the clues that they give. There's all kinds of stuff like that. And if you had an encounter table that you rolled and it said the first column for that result was, this is the warning that they get ahead of time. They see owlbear marks on a tree. They hear the rumble of an avalanche or rocks or whatever, right? Then the second column is what happens if they ignore that. That would be getting closer to providing a specific outcome. But do we want to provide something that specific in that situation? That becomes the thing. So giving them a warning, not giving them a warning, running it with no save, running it with a save, all these different things that you could change and see how different outcomes result. That, like you said, it would allow people to go, well, I want this outcome here, so I'm going to use this praxis to get to that outcome. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rob, and then I'm going to jump in after you.
Okay. So what I would do is there would be warning signs if it makes sense given the setting of the campaign. Okay. Nothing exists in a vacuum. Everything, even when it's a natural phenomenon without consciousness, there are often, not always, signs that people can be aware of. You go through, your character has a skill in mountain survival. You would know how to look for areas where there is a higher than normal risk for avalanches and rockfall, and thus may have a slightly chance knowing that that's going to happen. But on the other hand, we all read stories where even experienced mountaineers get slammed with a rockfall that comes out of freaking nowhere. So that's always on the chart. But here's the thing, how I would phrase that. See, we only have so many pages in the book. That's just the logistic of it. So while I have a table, I may have that exact same table with you. There would be a paragraph of advice. I would explain, okay, whenever you do something, it's always remember it has context in the larger world. That yes, there's a chance it's things out of the coming out of the blue, but assign odds to it. Assign the odds you really think that is.
I thought of this while you were just talking. What if you use the odds you already have? So you rolled the d6 to get the encounter and you got a 1. What if on a 2 you get the warning and then the encounter?
If that's what you think the odds are,
see what I'm saying? So there's a chance that you're going to get the warning. There's a chance that you're not going to get the warning.
Okay, but there's a point. So operationally, the goal here isn't to be critical about how you approach things with your example there. My view is consistent with my goal. The high level goal that's operating is when I run campaigns, I run a living world. My job, one of my primary jobs as a referee, is to bring the setting of the campaign world to life. So my guide, my ultimate adjudication point isn't the rule book I'm using, it's how my setting is described. So if the setting is described as Western Europe, except in these cases because it's a magical, fantastic place, then I'm going to look at how avalanches happen in real life, figure out, odds, maybe not to the level of the detail of GURPS, but enough that I can get a good sense of the odds, enough to put a D6 roll, like you said. But it's always going to fall back that. I had a big fight in my 5e campaign over the stealth rules. Players were ducking behind the trees in the middle of combat, making a stealth check, and then using that so they can get their sneak attack advantage. And that is one interpretation of the rule. And I let it slide for the one campaign, but I said for the next campaign, that's not going to be the case. If you're in combat, the situation in real life, you cannot you're not going to lose that kind of situational awareness. You literally have to be somewhere that nobody expects, and ducking behind the corner, ducking behind the tree, and making a hide check isn't going to cut it. That's just not how that shit works.
Right.
And but that's because I'm being frustrated because I'm trying to be true to my setting, and the players are thinking I'm playing D&D 5e, and they're not having soaked in that they're playing in my setting. And that's always a tension I have. That's why I played system like GURPS for 20 years, because GURPS doesn't have that fucking problem. Maybe it gets a little too much detail, but
please don't. I don't want the GURP speech.
Okay, but that's why. But I'm much happier with my Majestic Fantasy rules.
I understand that. Well, because you designed them, and that's going to be kind of like
Yeah.
Greg was touching on this earlier. Okay, everybody has their own style. My video series on this channel has been covering things like procedures and telegraphing danger, but something I probably haven't stressed enough is that every table, every GM has their own unwritten rules or unwritten laws. If you're going to look at my videos and say, hey, that one resonates with me, then as a DM, then certainly give it a try. If it doesn't resonate with you, don't add it to your table. Everything that I think they're good ideas, but they might not be a good idea for you. I would prefer that in most circumstances you telegraph the danger, but that doesn't mean that you take a wet cloth and swat your players across the face to let them know something's coming. Sometimes the hints are so subtle that they won't pick it up. Now, to put things in perspective, our regular group, okay, almost everybody in our regular group is not just a DM by trade, but a game designer by trade. So when you're gaming with Rob, Greg, me, Joe the lawyer, Tim Shorts, Matt Jackson, when Matt was not playing house, when you had this group together, you as a player kind of knew, I'm going to play in Rob's campaign. That's going to be different than playing in Joe's, because everybody has a different style. But I can learn from Rob and I can learn from Greg. I will never stop learning as a DM, because there's always something I can find to improve the game I run. And I think that's important. Is as a DM, you're a creative. All right, whether you're running a prepackaged adventure or you're designing it yourself, you're a creative, because as Rob pointed out, how Rob runs the same adventure and Greg runs it and I run it, you're going to have 3 different interpretations, 3 different views of how an encounter is going to be presented and the expectations of how it's going to play out. That's because of you, the DM, the GM, the referee, whatever you call yourself. And I think that distinction is important. To never go to a table and expect that, oh, this person's going to run it this way. You won't know until you sit there and be flexible as a player. I go to conventions. I play at convention games. Again, Greg was saying, he's played with different people at conventions. They all run good games that I've played with, but they all run it differently. I like to learn from and take the best that works for me. That's all.
Yeah, it's just that what I would like is to take that idea and step it up a notch, and you know, so we can learn, because I think not everybody's a carbon. Not everybody is simplistic at the GNS series paint. We're not separated into three neat categories. We're more complex than that. But
Well, see, but
nonetheless,
Rob, human nature is to always try to sort. That's the reason why the OSR back in the day, when they tried to make an organization, it wasn't
Targa,
going to work because everybody in the we can't always agree what OSR means or what falls into the OSR. So to divide the OSR into or GMs into three neat categories, it ain't happening.
right? And so, but we can see if we could step it up a notch to see where the overlaps are, and then we can learn. Hey, we got these three guys, and they're kind of doing the same thing for the same reason, and these two are having a much better time out of this third. Maybe we can figure out a good way when the goal is blah, and then if you have another goal, then you do blah, and then another goal. Basically, it's like we're not telling you what the best dinner dish is. We're just giving you a bunch of recipes to
Yeah.
use.
Well, and I'll say this from I don't think that I have some unique perfect answer for this what I'm about to say, but just by going through, since I'm running Gods of the Forbidden North, and I've made 6 videos now about this is how I think you should do this part of it. This is how I think you should do that part of it. A lot of people have been like, that's great. I'm glad you said that. Like one of the examples that I said, I think you should just have a shipwreck start instead of the start that is written in the book. And I've had people on the Pulp Hummock Discord server cite me and say, I tried this and it worked really great and do stuff. That's the kind of things that I really like to see is people talking about not, I like this edition and you like that edition, so you suck. But I want to see
unless it's 4E, in which case you probably do suck. But all right.
It's true. But I want people to be talking about like how to do a very specific thing. This is how I do that very specific thing. This is how I run a trap. This is how I run a random encounter. This is how I run a situation in town. This is whatever, I felt like, Rob, you ran a lot of things when we were doing the City State game in a way that I hadn't seen somebody run in it, because I don't do a lot of urban adventures. And I was like, oh, this is, I really like, running things like this where we could see what's going on down the street and stuff like that, which I always thought situational awareness was an issue in urban games, stuff like that. So that's what I'd like to see more discussion of. But the whole, this is why I hate Daggerheart. I get nothing out of that. I don't have any benefit of that. But if you say, I ran this specific encounter this specific way, and here's what happens, even if I don't like what happened, it's data.
Right.
So
we just don't have a lot of data.
I think the thing that you need to keep in mind, Greg, is that, but sometimes there are times when the higher level view is called for. For example, if you're going to answer, how are you going to answer the question, how do I run my campaign? If I take Middle Earth, how I'm going to run this campaign to when the players adventure through as Middle Earth characters, that it feels like Middle Earth, not like they're going through a Tolkien novel. That's a different kind of campaign with a different kind of focus. I'm saying they feel like the Middle Earth world. And that's one of the reasons I like Adventures in Middle Earth so much. Out of all the Middle Earth role-playing games I ever encountered, it was the first one that said, aha, so that's how I can run Middle Earth as a world and leave my players feeling like they visited Middle Earth and not just another variation of my Majestic Waterland.
Wait, you saying that MERP didn't accomplish that back in the day?
No, MERP did not accomplish that. Mert
Well,
with
I'll give
stat blocks
you one
and
piece of data then, Rob. I don't know if this even fits what you said about a distinction between running it in Middle Earth versus feeling like a Tolkien novel. But Rob Alderman is running our One Ring game, and the first way he introduced us into the world was to turn on music from the trilogy movies,
sure.
and then he delivered in a like movie phone voice, the in a world where blah blah. Yeah, he delivered this like monologue about it was like the beginning of the movies where this is the ring fell into the river and then this stuff happened also, and he delivered all that, and then he was like, and then here you are right at the end. So like it was just a short 4 or 5 minute thing, and he monologued it up and he played it up, and it was like a theater kid moment. I would never do theater kid stuff because that's not how I roll. But I would love to see long term what's the difference between somebody doing those kind of things where they try to make it feel like you're in the movie or in a dramatic story versus somebody running it like a D&D campaign.
Well,
that
I
would
didn't run
have
it
very
like
different outcomes.
I would say the dichotomy here, the interesting one to me, is how do you run it as you describe it, feeling like the Lord of the Rings movie, versus how do you feel like you just entered Middle Earth as your character and had some interesting adventure. Those are not the same thing.
I get it.
And that's not it's not the same thing as a D&D campaign either, because if you run your D&D setting as the Gygax describes it in the DMG and in the player's handbook and the monster manual, that too has its own very different feel. That world, if you run it as a living world, will not feel like Middle Earth. Or am I like my Majestic Waterland? Although I'm a lot closer to Gygax than I am to Middle Earth with the Majestic Waterland.
But I think a lot of this, though, is also lying in the fact that you, by virtue of your life path in real life, have a much different relationship to Middle Earth than I do or my son.
Right. And, of course, if I'm going to say I'm going to run a campaign where you can enter Middle Earth like a character and you're expecting to feel like the movie, you're probably going to get disappointed. Even though I will be role-playing characters much, because I think Jackson did a good job of bringing the characters to life in a way that was true to Tolkien for the most part. You'll feel like you'll see echoes of what happened in the movie, but it will not, the flow of the events will not necessarily feel like the movie because it'd be up to you. You'll be a sandbox, which you go making your way. And life, even in Middle Earth, is not going to flow like the movies, like The Hobbit, like the Silmarillion.
My character is a very violent Hobbit warrior, so he will not be living up like the movies at all. He is not Pippin.
So I hope that makes sense. But both I think are perfectly interesting campaigns. And back to how we got onto this, I think you can analyze it operational to see how you do it one way, so you feel like you entered the world of Middle Earth, versus you doing it this other way and you feel like you played out the movie, but it's still not a railroad because you don't know how the movie was going to end when you start out. It's just an active it. That felt like a movie that Jackson could have written or Tolkien could have been used for.
I think everybody here, all three of us, really knew how the movie was going to turn out. But I see what you're saying. Yes. Okay. But I also like, as another point of it, somebody could open it up the way Joe the Lawyer did and have one-on-one sessions with individual characters to build them, one or two little adventures, little micro adventures before they even join the party, so that character isn't just have an identity in the party. They have their own identity outside of it.
Yes. And all of these techniques, regardless of what the goal that started, to have consequences for the campaign, how actual play goes, and it'd be useful to know what those consequences are.
Well, one of our consequences was that Tim knew way fucking more than the rest of us because of his interaction with the gray elves. And he had all this fucking. We were like, well, what's happening here? And Tim would explain all this shit. We're like, well, how did he know all that stuff?
I left my cliff notes at home.
Yeah.
It wasn't written in in Gnomish. I'm sorry. I didn't get the translation. But no, but again, that is like a huge part of it too. Like we've already said, everybody brings into their GMing skills their experiences as a player, as a GM, and learning from others and your own life experiences. Everybody's table is going to be a little bit different. Even even like I said, even amongst us, we play together, but we all have different styles, and that's what makes it special. Again,
Well, I mean, I love you, and I mean no disrespect, brother, but you need to play more with us. You've been doing this YouTube thing. You've been getting involved in all of this other stuff. You need to get back to your roots.
Dude, I find me a game on Monday or Tuesday. Rach will sacrifice another night for the gaming gods. I listen. I know, and I that's part of the reason why I do enjoy going to conventions. I get
yeah. You get a lot more gameplay at conventions than me for sure.
Yeah, but I would. I may be getting involved in play testing. I think it's the Easy D6 system, some supplements for it. So we shall see. We shall see. But yeah,
I wanted to riff off of what RPG Grandma just said.
Go ahead.
I actually, one of the things I proposed in that Gods of the Forbidden North series is to give players different roles. So there's like a Native American Inuit type culture that's there. That's the native people of the land. And I say, like, make one character like really interested in learning more about those people. Yeah, it's their choice. You're kind of empowering them to dig into that. So then later, when something comes up, you can just pass that character handouts or notes or whatever. This is what's going on. And the same thing for like the church. So like I have a guy who knows a lot about the religion because he's a cleric, and I'll just write up a thing on the church explaining something and just pass him and say, here's how it works, and then he can explain it to the party as a person that's in world rather than it being me. And that takes that burden and shifts it out. So there's, I proposed 4 different roles. I don't want to go into them all here, but to take things that normally the GM would be pontificating out and instead transfer that knowledge around the side to the players and let the players be the one who explain those things to their own party members.
Cool.
How did you like how I handled the background details of in the City State campaign you played in?
Like of my family and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really want to share that much of that information with people like Joe who are nefarious. And it's in real life, I wouldn't like start talking about all these secrets behind my family's fall from power and everything.
You didn't for a long time.
Yeah. I kept it close to the vest.
But you had I believe you have some local stuff too, that stuff that happened to you while you're growing up. You were interested in the gladiator stuff that you were telling me about.
Yeah.
Gladiator movies.
I won the gladiator games there in that campaign. I was a real kick-ass hero.
Yeah, you made some awesome rolls there, and you had some awesome tactics.
So it was good.
But still, okay, folks, so you understand I have a critical hit rule in my Majestic Fantasy RPG. And the rule is this. You roll a nat 20, you're going to do max damage, then you roll the d20 again. If you fail to hit on the second roll, you roll dice additional dice and you add that to your max damage. If you hit, you do double max damage. If you roll another natural 20, and this is the critical point, you get to roll again. The most number of times I've seen a player do this was 4 times. 4 nat 20s in a row. And Greg, literally, I've been next to last or the last session. He knew for a while that he was on the boat with King Arthur, my campaign's equivalent of King Arthur's heir. His name is Constant, which is I took from one of the legend versions of King Arthur's legend, and they were on really friendly terms. You had your reasons, Greg, and it's a sandbox campaign, so you can do, but you decide it was in your people's best interest, in your best interest, being a Viking prince, to take him out, and you ambushed him, and he bun rushed him, knowing that he was wielding Excalibur. He rolls 3 nat 20s in a row.
I got him.
You didn't kill him, but the next round you got him.
That was good.
I couldn't.
What's funny is my favorite part of that fight was Joe the lawyer's charm spells. He was having how many people jumped off of that boat because he had like 9 people jump off the boat.
Yeah, he had a souped up charm because he was.
That's hilarious.
He was a priest. He was a priest of Nephthys, the goddess of wealth and pleasure, and one of their strengths is in charm magic, and so he had a charm spell that can basically mass charm people.
It was great. He was trying to be, he was like, all right, which of these 8 people am I going to pick to die this round? And then he was like, boop, boop, boop. And they all jump off the boat. And next round, he's throwing more people off the boat. Oh, man.
Yeah, the only thing the players quibble about me a little was Excalibur, because it would not suffer the touch of those who betrayed guest rights, and it was retrieved by the Lady of the Lake, or the sea in this case.
Wrongness. That was my loot. That was my rightful loot, Rob.
So, but the whole point of this isn't that I'm going to write some theory manifesto, because to do so, I would have to do a lot more work and I got other projects. Now, the whole point of what I was talking about, how I believe what RPGs are and the operational side of things, was so I can explain my Majestic Fantasy RPG. I mean, my goal is to run campaigns that leave you feeling like you stepped into the world that I've created, or in the case of other people's world, like the Third Imperium of Traveler or Middle Earth, that somebody else wrote it, and feel that you actually entered it, and you had some adventures that you found interesting, that you chose to pursue. And everything I explain in my referee event is going to be breaking that goal of mine down into how I accomplished this under different circumstances in the fantasy setting.
And then we can train Rob AI to do it, and then we can set up multiple games and have Rob AI run it for us.
It will only ever be a pale imitation of me.
Oh, just for now, it'll improve. Come on.
Yeah, eventually Rob AI 1 will talk to Rob AI 2.
We had this debate. The LLMs are a dead end in that regard. They will become useful. The one you should fear is not the AI. It's the AI is competing against other people using the AI to augment their own abilities. That's where the divide is going to take place. And it's already happening.
Well, I can believe that. AI used properly is like a crowbar in the dungeon, opening up that door a lot quicker than you pounding on it. Maybe not as quietly as the thief picking the lock, but much faster. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed to hear you guys talk about this, but when Skynet kills us all, I will at least be right.
If Skynet's killed us all because somebody stupidly hooked our A up to something that can kill us all, and it rolled the dice the wrong way one day, and it said, "Oh, the uh, humans ought to die today," but it's not doing it because it's conscious and it hates us. It does it because of a stupid die roll. That's
That's
the point.
exactly what the AI wants you to believe, Rob.
Okay.
All right. This so far is the best quote on AI I've seen. AI is a force multiplier. Some people are multiplying by zero, though.
Well, it can't multiply if you don't have greater than zero in that particular area.
That's true. I think that's
Well,
But then again, that's true of a hammer or or a screwdriver too. So
right. I mean, if I'm not gonna take my bare hand and pound in a nail, but you're not gonna have great results on that. But yeah, listen, we could do a whole if we were gonna do a full chat on AI, we'd have to invite Thaddeus. Mhm.
yeah, I
And
would
his
like to invite Sciatus for another if we ever
yeah,
have
you
a chat
should do
on.
that.
yeah, because he actually works in the field. It's and I've had some conversations with him. That's very interesting. He's a very interesting person. But so what else? Rob, you got anything coming up that's releasing?
I'm Northern Marches. I am finishing up this close to the end. I at the convention I announced that it's going to be available to the public to March, so I set a deadline to get it in the hands of the backer in 2 weeks or 3 weeks in February, and then I'll send it off to. They'll have the final PDF, and then I will be sending it off to drive through for the proof copy. And once that proof copy drops, and I make sure that then I can release it to the public.
Okay, Greg.
Well, 2026 for me is going to be taking a setting in Dark Sun that is mostly experienced by people historically in dramatic or cinematic module format. If anybody's ever looked at the old Dark Sun material, all of it is dynamic events. It's not like hex crawling, it's not dungeon crawling in the sense that other settings are. Even that Al Qadim leans heavily toward dramatics, but it still has there's dungeons in a lot of those modules.
Okay.
But I'm taking that kind of experience and creating in a revision of Shadow Sun with a new map that's going to be huge hex crawling map that's going to take a lot of the Terra Invictus stuff that I was talking about, bringing that in, making it into a much more mapped kind of geometric physical world with things in particular locations and much more of a traditional D&D exploration design and bringing that together. So it's going to be a lot of taking stuff that I didn't put in first edition of Shadow Sun because back then I couldn't afford a lot of the art assets that I can afford. And like if you have really weird monsters, nobody's making stock art for that.
No.
So I'm going to be able to bring in a lot. I have a lot more art that I wasn't able to have before. A lot more higher production quality stuff, and bringing that forward in a unique way. And I would love for Wizards of the Coast to release a horribly mauled, terrible mutation of Dark Sun after I release all of this, so that every time it's mentioned, people can point to Shadow Sun as an alternative. So please bring me my present for 2026 Wizards of the Coast. But other than that, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, I've set up on my Patreon. I'm sharing all sorts of stuff as if I revise a particular page, if I come up with a new spread or something, I'm screenshotting and putting it up on my Patreon. I'm working with people that are there, building it. Just kind of building it in the open I've wanted to kind of do things like that before, but I don't want to post everything onto social media. But being it in Patreon makes it much easier to kind of just talk with people about what you're making.
No,
Yeah, so
definitely.
it's been a really good experience. So that's my goal, and if I can pull that off, then I'm going to do the same thing for Shadowrim right behind it, which is my Skyrim-like setting. I was just talking to Matt, who did Barrows in Borderlands last night, about he was saying that sometimes when he's talking to people, they talk about like releasing DLC for an existing game seems to be really resonating with people a lot. And he was happy that he could now transition from he's got his game out and now he can just be focusing on DLC for that game,
Right.
so to speak. And I'm kind of in that same thing. Like I want to be able to design the DLC to create a specific experience, a specific outcome, like we were talking earlier, rather than I'm going to create a rule set that's going to tell you how to run these things. So my focus is really on as granular of a presentation as I can get,
Okay.
and learning from what I've done playing Shadowdark for 2 years now, from running OSE, from doing all kinds of different stuff, and implementing all that to move forward. The Terra Invictus system may end up powering a huge Dark Sun style dungeon or hex crawl across a huge continent. That would be really my ultimate goal. So,
Well, that reminds me when you speak of DLC that yes, I'm not going to be kickstarting it. I got all because the adventure is essentially going to remain the same, but Scourge of the Demon Wolf Second Edition will be hot on the heels after the release of the Northern Marches. The main difference is that instead of the little slice of the Waterlands I had in the original, it's going to be a much bigger. It's going to be the Northport area of the Northern Marches at a letter size map, so people will have that to play with, and it'll also be a good introduction to the Northern March, a different way other than Black March to get into the Northern March.
Fair enough. By the way, folks, I put a link to Chubby's channel, and I'm doing that because the vast majority are watching on my channel, but Greg does some excellent content. He's not just a creator of great source material. He has a great channel. So if you're watching on my channel, make sure when we finish this off in a few minutes, you pop over to Chubby's channel. I'm sorry, that kind of has an alliteration to it.
that's
But
okay. My One Ring character is named Chubby Nuggins.
oh,
Hobbit.
jeez, yes. But pop over to Greg's channel, give him a subscribe. He's got a video coming out tomorrow. He's promising me personally that I'm going to find it very interesting, which is cool. Because if it's interesting enough, maybe I'll do a response to it.
So actually, I have a link to
Oh, shove it in my
share as well. Hold on, let me get to it. There we go. I'm actually on a podcast Monday.
Ooh.
We had several episodes now. We call ourselves the RPG Ancient. It's from the we're a bunch of, I guess we all started gaming at the same time in the late 70s, and it was part of a discussion on the RPG Pub, and they said, "Why don't you guys start a podcast together?" I said, "Sure."
You were holding out on this, man. We didn't know about this.
No, there's several episodes in.
All right,
It's
folks.
to me of Clash Bally, who writes the Star Cluster system, and Bill Reich, who has an RPG on Drive-Thru called Glory Road, and then there's me, and sometimes Frank Filtz, who's a big fan of a system called Cold Iron that he's in the process of writing up for people to enjoy. It originates back in the 80s.
Wow. Well, folks, there's something to add to your podcast catcher. Very cool. It surprised me Thank you, Rob. Leave me in the dark. I'm disappointed, man.
We could do better on the marketing department. We're working on it.
Well, here, this is the start, folks. Step
We
number
actually
one.
keep a week because we couldn't get Craig to work. So
Oh,
embarrassing.
you're recording on Discord. God bless you.
I
Yeah,
still, I like that it's called a podcast because I still often, because I come from like, I was watching Joe Rogan and other podcasts when it was still podcasts.
Right.
Before it was live stream as the term. And I'll be like, hey, I'm going to be on a podcast with, and I'm like, oh, wait, I'm not on a big podcast. I'm on a live stream. Like my brain is just stuck with that word. I don't know why.
Well, technically, like your regular channel would be a vidcast, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So just saying.
Well, let me give you another link too, because we do take listeners' discussion using the RPG. Well, we wanted to call ourselves the Old Bastards podcast, but they wouldn't let us use that. So,
Yeah, you have to like misspell it like bastages.
so if you guys have questions for us, for any of us, me or the other guys, just head over to the RPG Pub and post your questions on that thread.
There you
and we
go.
will answer them. We were batting 100 so far.
You could have gone with Sword Bastards and then say that it was a bastard sword reference, and then it's no longer a bad word. See?
Yeah, there you go.
Old bastard swords, something like that, you know.
Something like that.
Something like that. Well, for those worrying about Don, apparently everything is kind of okay. No harm, no foul. Thank you to Greg. Thank you to Rob. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You have been very beautifully chatty, and that's awesome. Tomorrow night, live stream, me and my wife, Rach, Gamers Health, 8 o'clock. If you're in the Snowmageddon, I don't know, half this country that's under some kind of a winter weather watch, use tomorrow if you need to get necessities. I got eggs and milk and bread in the freezer. I'm good. But
I got 2 jars of Jif, and that's all I need.
That's all you need. and that's probably for the dog or the cat. I don't know. All right, folks. God bless. Good night.
Good night.
We'll catch you guys later.